GBH Boutique Care offers you a unique exclusive membership in our nationwide concierge medical services network. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Judine Bontemps-Hill. I'm double board certified in family and obesity medicine. We pair exclusive personalized care with accessibility and convenience. A better way for you to receive immediate quality medical care. Whether at our main Orlando, Florida office, traveling across the U.S. or visiting the States, we bring you the best medical care without waiting for an appointment. Become a member today by calling 407-234-5282 or visit us online at jbhmeg1.com. JBH Boutique Care is proud to sponsor Sounds of the Diaspora, music and conversations with artists, and host Dion Parson every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Source TV Radio Network, WGSN, Washington, D.C.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Sounds of the Diaspora, Artist to Artist, a conversation with yours truly, Dion Parson. Please join me in welcoming this week's guest to the Sounds of the Diaspora, the one and only cellist, composer, arranger, conductor, and the occasional vocalist, I just remembered. Please join me in welcoming Miss Akua Dixon.
Thank you so much for having me.
How you doing, Akua?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Dion. It's good to see you.
Likewise, it's really good to see you. It's been a while.
Yes, it has.
Yes. How are things these days?
Well, they're going very well. You know, I'm enjoying life. Kids are grown. I'm working and sharing my music in a different way, and it's just going really good.
Great. And I know you're proud of the kids. They both are musicians as well, doing well.
Yes, they are both doing well. Andromeda has a new CD out that was just released that really is I'm just amazed at both of their composing skills.
Mm-hmm. Great. And Orion is doing good?
Yes, he is.
That's great. Well, please give them my best. And I know you're the proud mama, so congratulations on their accomplishments.
Oh, I will tell both of them.
Great.
I know your family is also getting grown, your son.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's finding his way, playing the trumpet, doing his thing. Yeah, it's really nice. I'm enjoying that, and it's giving me a new perspective on things, just to have him, have that encouragement. I was practicing the piano yesterday at my in-laws, and I was messing up some notes. And when I finished and went outside on the patio, he looked at me and said, "Man, I'm going to tell you the same thing you tell your students. Just read the music, play the right notes."
Yes.
You got me, son. You got me. So,
okay, that's good.
It's good to have that, reminder every once in a while. I was tired. I was just like behind the piano, just like messing around. But I was messing up some notes, and he reminded me, like, "Hey, Dad, you got to get it together. Come on."
Yes, they're always listening.
They're always listening. But that's great. But so thank you for coming on the show. I know I reached out to you a while back in the middle of your hectic schedule, and we settled on this date. And you're the first string player, cellist to be on the show. And so I wanted you to be the first as I was putting my list together to have artists on here, and your name came up. And one of the reasons why I wanted you to be the first on the show is because on Sounds of the Diaspora, we try to connect artists with the Afro-Caribbean diaspora, but also from a genre perspective. And I know you're classically trained, but I know you as a jazz cellist, conductor, arranger, composer, and a vocalist. So you've crossed many genres. So I figured that your story needs to be told. So let's start from not the beginning, but let's you could take us back as early as you would like. But how did your musical journey start?
Okay, I was born in Harlem. Okay, and into a family where my mother's family no one had studied classical music,
Okay.
but all of her siblings could tinkle out a spiritual or a blues on the piano. Because you have to realize that if you go back to the early 1900s, we didn't have the same kind of equipment. Everybody had pianos in their house,
Right.
So all of them played their spirituals and stuff tinkling on the piano by ear. Okay. And I grew up going to Baptist and Pentecostal churches, which put me in tune with the actual rhythm and feeling of the history of Black music in America.
Right.
Okay. So when I was in elementary school, I had the opportunity to study cello. I had an older sister that had started on violin, and 2 years ahead of me. But I loved the instrument. I loved the instructional situation I was in. The New York City public schools back then were in fabulous shape. And my elementary school, for fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, I had a half a day of music and a half a day of academics.
Right.
Okay. As long as I kept my academics up, I could do that. So it gave me a chance at a really young age to get a good foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Parents not wanting their children to just play and be on the streets in our community always set it up so that those of us that played instruments, we got together and played chamber music on the weekends, took music out of the library. So at the same time I was playing classical music, like I said, I was going to a Black church and in a Black household and community where I had to be able to participate in African American music. Okay. Mm-hmm. I couldn't go to parties and dances and not know what the latest tunes were. Right. They were not part of that classical world. So I had to learn both, Okay. By the time I was in junior high school, I was working as a cellist, doing messiahs and stuff like that at different churches. There's New York City. Really, it was amazing to grow up in because there was music from all different nationalities around. And I had friends from all over. So we would play in a Greek church. We'd play in a Jewish synagogue, Mm-hmm. We'd play Latin bands. So I always had the opportunity to reach out and play other things that were all notated, right, but rhythmic. Okay. People were I would say that Black and Latino artists especially had a difficult time finding string players who were strong enough players to play their music,
right,
and keep the rhythm. Whereas most of the European classical players, even though they had the technique, their rhythmic styling wasn't correct. Okay. Mm-hmm. So my first professional job where I had to get my union card was at the Apollo Theater at 18 or 19 years of age with James Brown.
Okay.
And a string quartet. And a string quartet. At the same time that I was in school doing classical stuff, playing with the symphonies and still getting my technique together. This was all written music for me, Mm-hmm. I would say that the biggest catalyst for me was I said New York was just a wonderful place for me to have grown up with. I got to play with everybody. So when I was about 25, I got to do a concert with Duke Ellington, Beautiful. And it really hit me because I was trying to incorporate these kind of sounds into my music. And when I really did that job, I just said, you know something? This is a turning point for me. I have to learn how to improvise. Mm-hmm. That's my heritage. That's my culture. It's not just about reading the parts and being able to do it well. So that's where my journey into learning to improvise and bring my string quartet, which I had at that point in time, into the foray of doing this music.
Great. So you at this time you was just studying classical, playing professional gigs, but your jazz development, improvisational skills just came through working and developing that on your own.
Yes, and I have to say too that Jazz, the root of jazz is the spirituals, work songs, and gospel music of African Americans,
Right.
So every Sunday I was going to church, and either I was going to a Pentecostal or a Baptist church, which was all day, and the music, you had to be on top of the rhythm,
Right.
So I wouldn't, but I was infused with the rhythm of it from the time that I was a child.
Right.
And I will have to say that as a string player, it's very difficult to learn changes in jazz with jazz musicians.
Okay.
Music, I will say the music is written for B flat instruments.
Right.
And they jump into it and just go to town, and having to wait on string players to try to figure out what they've been doing for the last 40 years. Where strings are at the beginning of playing jazz, and for them to have that kind of patience sometimes is very difficult.
Right, because a lot of composers don't know how to write for strings, because you guys are in the movable clef, the alto clef, or you have those different nuances, and they may not be versed in that, so you're left out. They just kind of leave it up to you to figure out what you need to do.
Yes, and a lot of stuff that they write really doesn't fit on the instrument well.
Right, it's outside of the range and stuff like that.
And the hand positions, the way the shifts are.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can't, when I think about the saxophone, which to me is a glorious instrument, it has a lot of power and sound, and you just stand in one spot and you can just play all these notes. I have to shift all over the place to get anything, so it's a whole nother ball game of technique. To be able to
and as far as the range of the cello, it's not low enough to be a bass, and it's not high enough to be a violin. So you're kind of in the middle. So you're not a melodic instrument per se, and you're not a bass instrument. So a lot of people don't know what to do with the cello.
Right. But I will say that
beautiful instrument.
The instrument goes down to the C, 2 octaves below middle C.
Okay.
The bass only goes to an E below that. So it's not that big a difference. And in European classical music, the cello in a string quartet functions as the bass.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Uniquely enough, I have at the University of the Virgin Islands, I have a student, our first string major, and he's a cellist. Okay. And he was in my youth ensemble for a couple of years, and he's a pretty good classical cellist, but he's been playing bass. So we were teaching him jazz. He was playing the bass part on the cello. He's playing now. He picked up the bass over last summer. He started messing around with the bass, so he's now playing bass in a jazz ensemble. But he plays a really good jazz cello, and I would love to introduce him to you, because you can allow with him. But from the cello, he's like, I really want to be a cellist, but I understand the bass now, so he's developing that as well. So there's a lot of synergies in that, and I know other musicians have transitioned from the cello to the bass and become proficient on that level.
There's a good reason for that. And as a woman, I would say that I had a luxury that the men didn't have, in a sense, in that there was no work for cellos in jazz. There's work for bass players in jazz.
Right.
Okay? Every band needs a bass player. So even Ron Carter, who started out as a wonderful cellist, switched to bass. It's a way of earning a living.
Right.
Okay? In my case, since I also came up classically and I had all these sensitivities for other styles of music, I was in demand on Broadway and other styles of shows and ways of earning money other than just jazz.
Right.
So I could take the luxury of not switching to bass.
Right. And as a performer, you also got so much experience playing in the pit, playing with orchestra, playing in smaller quartets, that it assisted you as a composer, because you wrote a number of string pieces for pop artists and different situations. And that's great too, because it helped you around once you decided to develop yourself as a composer.
Yes. Well, and strings are my specialty in writing. Okay?
Right.
So the popular stuff that I've done, which I'm really so proud of with my string quartet, the string writing is arrangement part of the composition really stands out because that's my forte.
Right, right. Who are some of the artists that you have written arrangements for?
Look at Everything is Everything. Lauryn Hill, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill.
Okay.
I did the strings for that, and that's my string quartet playing.
Okay.
Also, A Rose is Still a Rose, Aretha Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
That's my string writing. I didn't do the arrangement of the song. I arranged the strings.
Right.
So I've done for that kind of recordings, yes.
Right. And I know you've played with a number of jazz artists in special projects like their group plus strings. And can you talk about some of those projects?
Yes. One of the ones that really comes up that stands out for me was Betty Carter,
Okay.
because she wanted to do something with a string quartet, but her idea of a string quartet was 4 cellos.
Okay.
And she let me know that she played cello in her youth and she still had her instrument. Okay. Which I was surprised to hear, but not shocked because, her voice is so wonderful. I was just saying, oh yeah, another cello player. But Jerry Allen did the arrangements, so you know that the music was wonderful.
Yeah.
The Max Roach double quartet was a major learning experience. Like I said, working for James Brown, in comparison to the symphonic repertoire that I had to play in college, because I was in college when I did his show, the music was technically simple in a certain way, but the rhythm had to be on point.
Right.
There was no way that you could be on the stage with James Brown and not have lick and stick, the bass line or whatever you had to play, not be with his band, or he wouldn't keep you on the stage.
Right.
Okay. So I learned the rhythm of funk. I did Temptations, the Pips, all those bands in there. I learned the rhythmic harmony of all that they were doing when I was in college, in my college years. Later on, growing up and getting to work with Max, that was 81. That was major in that I had worked with a lot of Latin artists and recorded with Cachao and La Lupe, Hector Lavoe. So I really had my rhythmic thing, I thought, together. And then Max called us for this gig, and he's a perfectionist. And he let us know that he has to be able to just, when the concert time came, sit down and play. He can't wait on anybody.
Right.
So he rehearsed us from September until June. Okay. That was my 9 to 5. And then we went to the theater to work after that. And every phrase he played, and we were at my apartment. I was pregnant with Andromeda at the time, so it wasn't an easy time for me.
Wow. Okay.
I remember because we started rehearsal in September. I took off to have the baby and then went right back into rehearsal after that. And it wasn't easy. But every phrase that he wanted rhythmically played, he would just, even with a telephone book and brushes, play it exactly how he wanted the strings to mimic the rhythm. Okay. He also insisted that we cassette all of those rehearsals. So I have him talking and explaining about the ghost notes and everything that we needed to do in order to be able to play with him, and starting the metronome out at a slow tempo and just working it all the way off the other end, because you had to practice like that so that when it came time for concert, boom, you just sat down and just hit.
And played. And he loved those tempos.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. There's one particular track, and I didn't think about it before because it's not a video. Cecil Bridgewater wrote a piece called Bird Says. And there's just, the piece is really, really long. I just took the string ensemble chorus. It's called Bird Says, and I have it on my SoundCloud page. and it's just the string quartet and the bass. And we've kept the tempo from where Max started the piece with Odine and Cecil soloing. And then here comes the string quartet playing this ridiculous Charlie Parker lick ensemble chorus that Cecil Bridgewater wrote, and then continued on with Max's solo after that. And the tempo does not change. The string quartet got such applause. It's a wonderful track, you know.
Yeah, and I've listened to that, you know, group, the double quartet with the strings a number of times just in my study of Max Roach, and it's really, really beautiful. And I know it's a challenge playing with string players, because when you play with an orchestra, which I've done also, you know, they play behind the beat. You know, orchestra plays behind the beat. I remember playing a gig with John Faddis one time, and we were in rehearsal. And I'm watching the conductor, and our downbeats weren't lining up. And after like the second or third try, I looked at John and I said,
"Never watched the conductor."
I never watched the conductor. It was my first orchestra gig with a jazz, and I just said, "Man, I'm just playing." And as soon as I decided to just take the bull by the horn, everything came together. Yeah. But it just, the entire night, it was like 140 piece orchestra. It was like almost, it felt like it was like a beat behind us on everything.
I'm going to say this too, because in my case, growing up, getting those kind of gigs, for the most part, they would hire, and these are Black artists, they would hire the New York Philharmonic, and they would put a few of us in there. Okay. Right. So because I'm in the string section, I can't change the rhythmic impetus of the section. I've got to play with the section.
With them, yeah.
So at a really young age, I just had this dream and this desire to be able to do the arrangements and contract the strings myself, to contract people who really understood the rhythm. Because a lot of those jobs, in the end, I can think of some very prestigious jobs that we did, that they decided at the end to just get the CD and play the CD and have the strings just sit there, you know, and not play because they weren't getting jiggy with it.
Right.
Rhythm is the problem. And the fact that in most conservatories, they don't teach anything about American music. So people don't know what the head of the tune is, what the bridge is, basic forms. So they're just reading the paper. And when you're working with pop artists, they sometimes take an extra bridge or take an extra verse or change things up. And if you don't know that, they're stuck having to do it locked into the paper.
Right. Yeah. That is a challenge, especially with only classically trained musician. And again, that's why I wanted everyone to hear your story, because you have paved the way for a lot of musicians because of your upbringing from the spiritual environment in the church, but from your classical training, but then being thrown into the jazz world, the pop world, the professional world at a young age, you understood right away that there's a structure to all of these things.
Right. And each one is different.
Each one is different.
The Montuno is different than funk.
Exactly. And but they all speak in their own right, and they all have their own clave per se, but you have to understand, how that works. And you really have done a great job over the years putting that together. I know you've played in a number of string quartets, but do you have a working quartet at this time?
Okay. I had, my string quartet was Quartette Indigo. And it was a quartet that all of the players improvised. Okay? Right. I'm the last living one in my quartet.
Wow.
And I've done a few things where I've put together a string quartet, but in recent years, after losing everybody, the last 2 CDs I put out were cello with rhythm section.
Okay.
Because I felt that the violin has already been out there as an instrument with a rhythm section.
Right.
Okay. And the cello had not. So I really I did some writing and a lot of practicing in order to get that together and put the cello out there as a featured instrument. And I was really blessed because on the last CD, Ron Carter played bass for me on a couple of the tunes.
Nice.
So it was just an amazing experience to do that. I I can easily put together a string ensemble of people that work together with me, but having an ensemble that is together as much as the one I had over all the decades, I don't have together at this time.
Okay. But it's great that you still have people that you can pull together and still make that happen.
Yes. I'm trying really. I've got 50 years of string quartet, quintet, and orchestra, different string ensemble writing music that I've done. At this point, I'm trying to get other people to play it.
All right.
I know I can play it and that it works. I need the classical community, because it is notated, to be able to get the right inflections and do it. So that's where my focus is right in here. I can think of a particular job I did for Jazzmobile, and the strings section, Louis Nash was the drummer. Okay, so when the band had an ensemble chorus, he had the timing and everything with them just popping, and it was correct. The string section had the same ensemble chorus a little bit later, but the rhythm, and like you said, the beat was behind the beat, but the phrasing was like European classical phrasing. And they didn't switch and listen to what the band was doing and play it like they did. But Louis switched up.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then when we finished playing that way, he switched back.
Yeah. Well, you got the right guy for the job.
It was memorable. It was memorable.
That's beautiful. Well, you shared with us a number of recordings that because we've been talking for a while, and I know our audience is like, we want to hear something. And what I like about the recordings that you share with us, it covers the spectrum of what we've been talking about. So it's not just quartet or with a rhythm section. So this is really nice. The first song you shared with us is a song called Circling, and it's a complete cello ensemble.
Yes, that's a very special arrangement in that there's an organization that's been around since 1998 called the New Directions Cello Festival, and they still have it every year, and it's cellists that come from all over that share what they're doing, new directions in music on the cello. Okay. So and I've presented pieces with them many times. That particular year that I went and I took that piece, it's not an easy piece to play. It's in 11. And it's interesting in that some music can be played just by looking at the metronomical aspect of it on the paper. And other pieces, you have to hear the phrase and just sing and play the phrase. It's about what came first. The phrase came first, then it was mathematically figured out and put on the paper. And then when you perform it, you have to give it that personal flow back again. So it took them a minute to get it. So there's no improvising on this piece on that particular recording, but it is meant to have also improvisation. But they did a wonderful job playing the piece.
Beautiful. Well, let's check out Akua Dixon's Circling. That was 2018. That was
Yeah.
wow, not that long ago. That's great.
I haven't listened to that tape in quite some time. It was good to hear.
Yeah. So how many cellos were on stage?
I have no idea. That festival every year, there's tons of cellos, and they always have a concert where they, play music that's been arranged for the cello big band.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I've presented music there several times, and it's always wonderful.
Nice. One of our listeners says, "Bravo! That's a lot of cellos." Right for that.
Well, the cello has such a wide range and such a beautiful sound that there's nothing wrong with having a lot of cellos.
Oh yeah, it's great. I like the flow of the 6 and the 5, making it 11, and then there's a 5 section in there, and then it ends at 5, which kind of wraps it all up. It's really nice.
Yes. Well, thank you. I'm glad you like it.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful. It's, again, you're doing some amazing things, and people need to know about it.
It's interesting because that particular piece is very orchestral in a sense.
Right. Yeah.
Of my writing.
Yeah.
And I've written in a lot of different styles, including tunes and everything else, Yeah.
Well, I'm enjoying it. And I'm looking forward to the next piece which you wrote, which is kind of like two things in one, Lamentation and Ladies Blues.
Yes. When I work with the string quartet, the cello functions as the bass in the string quartet. So I don't really get a chance to play, and as the leader of the band, people like for me to be able to play and make a statement. So I'll play a solo piece, a short rendition into another work a lot of times, So that's how Lamentations into Ladies Blues happened. Lamentations is by one of my favorite composers. He's an African-American classical composer, Coleridge Taylor Perkinson.
Okay.
He's got a suite called Lamentations that has like 5 or 6 movements, and that's part of one of the movements.
Mm-hmm. And then you just segue into your Ladies Blues.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well,
which is a simple blues, and it's one of my earlier pieces, but you have to realize that getting a string quartet to play a blues was something very unique and different and hadn't happened. So in the 70s, when I wrote that piece, trying to get everybody to play it was a challenge.
Right.
Now it's not a challenge. There's a lot of string quartets who can play it and swing on it,
Well, let's check it out. Lamentation and Ladies Blues.
you. Now, the interesting thing about that particular piece, too, is that the cello is walking the bass line, and sometimes it's done with the bow, and sometimes it's done with pizzicato. So that was another technique that I had to develop.
Right. Right. But it's when you started to walk, it was like I had to kind of double the take because it felt the vibe. But then you were playing, when you started out the piece, you were playing these grace notes that was slipping into the note, and it was very blue, like these blue notes, like, you know, elements of the blues. That's really nice. Like you see, you don't never hear that hardly hear it in cello or string music, but you have all of those things within the quartet.
Yeah. Well, that kind of sound comes out of African American music,
right?
You know, or music from the diaspora, because we bend tones, you know. Whereas European music is usually very precise and just head on and on the point, and that's really where it's coming from. That string quartet also, that was one of those jobs that when I did it, they picked the other three players. I sent them the music, and that's not even my cello. That's somebody else's cello that was up there, sponsored the festival, and I came up and had a rehearsal with them, and we hit the gig.
Nice. Well,
excellent players.
We have a listener that said, "Love it, very bluesy." So yeah, you're dealing with great musicians. I actually was going to ask you if that was one of your working quartets.
Nope, they're alive and well. I could easily pull them together.
Yeah, good. That's good to know. Yeah. That's great. It's beautiful stuff. I mean, again, you don't hear the blues like that.
Not in strings.
Not in strings. Yeah. It works. Though. You're doing it. I'm enjoying this. Well, you have another piece that I found to be really interesting because this combines the rhythm sections with the strings. And when I saw the name of the song is Whatever, and I'm like, Whatever. I said, what was she thinking about when she wrote it? But as you play the melody, you're playing whatever, like over and over. I said, okay. I got it. I don't know what you was thinking about, but I got it.
I know you did. You know me, so you probably interesting. But you know, I have over the earlier years, writing and doing things with the string quartet. The kind of jobs that we got called to do, Black History Month performances, places in libraries, churches, weren't really so much in jazz clubs, you know.
Right.
So the repertoire that I developed for them was very different than if we had been just doing jazz clubs in particular. But back then, someone said to me, you know, you don't write tunes, you write compositions.
Right.
Okay. And I said, okay, well, is that a bad thing? They said, no, but if you're going to play in a jazz club, you got to write tunes. You know, you can't play compositions in a jazz club. So I said, okay, let me see about writing a tune. So I did. I wrote a couple of tunes, and one of them is Whatever.
Well, we're good. Let's hear it. Hear it. I really enjoyed it. It brought a smile to my face. So let's check it out. Whatever by Akua Dixon. I love it.
Yeah, one of my tunes.
I love it. It had like that kind of modal vibe, like so what-ish.
What? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But it's in a key that works on cello.
Cello, right.
And,
right.
It's difficult for string players to go and sit in because you got to take a wire, and for cellists you got to have a chair and a strap, and it's just a pain. So the opportunities to really get to sit in and play jazz and learn with other people is something that has to be resolved for string players, and especially cellists.
Right. So, but you're doing it. You're making it happen. I saw you had Freddie Bryan on guitar and Orion doing his thing on drums.
Yes.
And the man KD on bass. Yeah.
Yes. They've stuck by me for a lot of years. Trying to work all of this out because it's not it was something that I had to figure out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you figured it out, and it's a swing, and it's happening. I'm loving it. Doing a great job. So that's really nice to hear that. And again, I immediately thought of Miles Davis, so what, and the tradition of the tradition of jazz, and dealing with the modal stuff and all that. So all of those elements are being covered. So it's just really nice to hear the instrument being presented in that fashion.
Thank you. And I'm glad you got it, because that's what I really wanted to achieve.
Right. Whatever. That's what I'm thinking as you're playing it. And I'm like, I can only imagine what she's thinking.
Private conversation.
Well, you wrote a jazz tune, so it happened.
Read the music.
Yeah. That's great. Well, we went down to our last song. Oh. And I noticed it's named for your son Orion. So you want to tell us a little bit about this before we jump into it? Orion's Gait.
Orion's Gait, and it's Gait, Gait, his walk.
Okay.
Orion has a very interesting personality, and as a child, raising him, it was very interesting. I would sometimes, and this still goes on to this day, I'll hear him at the piano playing something of mine, but changing the harmony and everything all up on it. Okay. But it's an original composition of mine, and he hears very differently than me, but he'll take that same melody and structure. This particular morning that he was going to school, he was being a little bit of a pill, okay? Mm-hmm. And he kept doing the same kind of aggravation, but in a different way. So the melody line kind of does that. It's the same melody, but it has a different harmony underneath it, to express what I was going through with him at that moment. Okay. But I was recently out to his house, and he said, I want you to hear something. And he was playing one of my tunes, and he had totally reharmonized it. And it took me a minute to figure out, why don't you write your own tune? Which he does, but he's stretching it. And I think it's wonderful.
That's great. Well, let's check it out. I'm curious to hear it. Orion's Gait by Akua Dixon. Orion's Gate. I love it.
Somebody wrote so mellow, so peaceful.
Yes.
Answer back. Thank you so much.
You have a new fan. You have a new fan. Great.
Thank you.
It's been so wonderful having you on the show, Akua, and for you to share your time, your upbringing, your music with us, and your experiences. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you, and we've worked together in so many different situations, over the decades, so it's been a nice journey also getting to play and work with you, especially I think with the shell choir and stuff like that, where I was doing other kinds of things, so.
Right. Beautiful. Well, thank you for being here, and all the best, continued success with your different projects. If you have any new projects coming up, let us know. We'd love to share with our audience and showcase you and have you back with other projects in the future. So let's stay in touch and keep the music happening.
Thank you so much. It's good to see you, Dion. Take care.
Likewise, all the best, Akua. Take care.
Peace and love.
Yes. That was Akua Dixon, cellist, composer, arranger, conductor, and occasional vocalist. Dear friend, someone I've known for a while. I'm so happy to have her on the show out of, taking the time out of her busy schedule. And we hope to have her back in the near future. So that was Akua Dixon. So next week we have another special guest, good friend of mine, someone I've worked with in a number of occasions. So please join us next week as we bring to the sounds of the diaspora, the one and only Mr. Ron Jackson. You guys take care. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you next week. All the best.
JBH Boutique Care offers you a unique exclusive membership in our nationwide concierge medical services network. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Judine Bontemps-Hill. I'm double board certified in family and obesity medicine. We pair exclusive personalized care with accessibility and convenience. A better way for you to receive immediate quality medical care. Whether at our main Orlando, Florida office, traveling across the U.S. or visiting the States, we bring you the best medical care without waiting for an appointment. Become a member today by calling 407-234-5282 or visit us online at jbhmeg1.com. JBH Boutique Care is proud to sponsor Sounds of the Diaspora, music and conversations with artists, and host Dion Parson every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Source TV Radio Network, WTSN, Washington, D.C.